Good afternoon and welcome to the National Capital Planning Commission's April 4th, 2024 open session. First, Ms. Sullivan, could you please take the roll call?
Okay, Commissioner Steingasser. I'm going to come back to Commissioner Steingasser. Commissioner McMahon.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Great. Commissioner Stidham.
Here.
Commissioner Argo.
Good afternoon. I'm here.
Vice Chair Hewlett.
Present.
Commissioner Green.
Here.
Chair Goodman.
I'm here.
Commissioner Wright.
Here.
Commissioner Dixon.
Here.
Commissioner Cash.
Present.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Giacchetti.
Here.
And I'm circling back to Commissioner Steingasser.
Here. Thank you.
Marcel Acosta, Executive Director, and Ann Schuyler, General Counsel, are also in the meeting today.
Thank you. Diane, noting the presence of a quorum, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today's meeting is being live streamed and will be available in a few days as a video on the NCPC website. If there's no objection, the agenda as posted is adopted as our order of business. Could we please play a short video clip now of the Pledge of Allegiance? Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. NCPC will continue to conduct meetings online until the renovations on the commission chambers are complete. I want to share how we will be conducting commission business. Following the staff presentations and any other testimony, I will ask for a motion and a second as appropriate. During the commission deliberations, I will use the round robin format, asking each commissioner if they have comments. At other times when commissioners wish to be recognized, they should unmute and ask for recognition. At each April meeting, we elect a vice chair of the commission and we approve the third member of the executive committee. So I'd like to start with the election of the vice chair. And I will share with the commission that I've confirmed with the current vice chair, Betty Hewlett, her interest in remaining in the position. I also want to note that today is Betty's birthday, and I want to wish her a happy birthday on behalf of the commission. And with that, would there be a motion to approve Betty as vice chair of the NCPC commission, please?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Sullivan, can you please confirm the motion and the second and take a vote by roll call?
Yes, Commissioner McMahon made the motion, and I believe Commissioner Argo seconded. All right, Commissioner Steingasser?
Yes.
McMahon?
Yes.
Commissioner Stidham?
Yes.
Commissioner Argo?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewlett?
Yes.
Chair Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon?
Yes.
Commissioner Cash?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Yes.
And Commissioner Giacchetti?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has carried. Congratulations and happy birthday, Vice Chair Hewlett.
Thank you so much.
Vice Chair Hewlett, would you have any comments you want to make at this time?
Well, I wasn't expecting this, but briefly, I would say I've just enjoyed my short time on the commission itself, and I've enjoyed working with you and everyone as vice chair as well. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Betty. And again, enjoy your day.
Thank
And
you.
our next agenda item for the commission is to approve the third member of the executive committee. I have spoken with Commissioner Arrington Dixon, and he is willing and able to continue to serve on the executive committee. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I move approval.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor. Vice Chair Hewlett made the motion to approve Arrington Dixon as the third member of the Executive Committee. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Sullivan, can you confirm these and take the vote by roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Hewlett made the motion and Commissioner Steingasser seconded it. Commissioner, so now we're going to vote. Commissioner Steingasser,
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon,
Yes.
Commissioner Stidham,
Yes.
Commissioner Argo,
Yes.
Commissioner Hewlett,
Yes.
Chair Goodman,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon,
He has to say yes.
Yes.
great, Commissioner Cash,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Giacchetti.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion has carried. Congratulations, Commissioner Dixon, on your reappointment to the executive team. And I would like to also offer you the opportunity, Arrington, if you'd like to add anything or say anything to the commission.
Oh, just thank you for giving me a chance to do this again. I appreciate it very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. We're very grateful. Agenda item number 4 is the report of the chair. And today, I have to say that I'm very honored and privileged to have served now for a little over a year on this commission. And it's been clear from my very first meeting that Mina Wright defined what it means to be a National Capital Planning Commission member. Public service is a vocation for those of us who work in this area of government and make it our career. But it is really a vocation. It's a commitment to the country, and it is a commitment to the beliefs that we all share and hold dear. Mina has served for 15 years at the General Services Administration and 14 years on this commission. And I just want to say, Mina, your consummate knowledge and your impeccable preparation and your very strong contributions have been a lesson to me personally as the new chair of this commission. But your leadership in your work on this commission is really unmatched. And so I want to and hope I do speak for all the commissioners and the staff when I say how grateful we are to you for your service, Mina, and for your many contributions. There are not enough plaques in this town or in the region to have your name fixed, because you've made contributions throughout, and really it's this kind of leadership that goes into the planning that makes this place, the capital region, such a special place. And we're just, again, so grateful. We will not forget you. And I'd like Diane to please read the resolution that we're putting before the commission today.
It would be my pleasure. Whereas Mina Wright served as an alternate for the administrator of the General Services Administration to the National Capital Planning Commission for more than 13 years, starting with the first meeting in October 2010. Whereas Commissioner Wright is retiring from the General Services Administration after providing many years of invaluable public service, culminating as the founding director of the Office of Planning and Design Quality within the Public Buildings Service. Whereas throughout her tenure on the commission, she advocated for the importance of the design review process, encouraging colleagues to look deeply at projects and applicants to stretch for and achieve higher standards. She brought a keen eye, a great sense of humor, and a forthright delivery to every meeting. Whereas personally and professionally, she was committed to design excellence in public buildings, public space, and commemorative works. Through her work, she sought to advance a sustainable, safe, and beautiful capital. Whereas Commissioner Wright consistently advanced the Commission's review of major GSA proposals, working with her colleagues to ensure submitted projects were complete, thoughtful, and supported NCPC policies. She demonstrated skill and creativity in finding solutions that achieved historic preservation, high-quality design and security goals, including the ongoing master plan and projects for the St. Elizabeth's West Department of Homeland Security Headquarters Campus, the Food and Drug Administration White Oak Campus, and the renovations to the U.S. Department of Commerce building. And yes, so very, very many antennas. Whereas her understanding of the complex design, planning, and development issues associated with developing major federal facilities and campuses in urban environments positively changed the Commission's review of major master plans and projects, including the White House, Lafayette Park, and the new Federal Reserve campus. Whereas Commissioner Wright was instrumental in fostering many of NCPC's planning initiatives, encouraging partnerships and providing thoughtful guidance for improved stewardship and enduring design solutions. In particular, she played a key role in protecting federal interests in Washington's form and character on the Height Plan, Master Plan for Washington, D.C., and helped to establish a new vision for Pennsylvania Avenue and secure the funding to advance the initiative. Looking beyond the process, she understood the importance of creating a national public space of communal joy. Therefore, be it resolved that on April 4th, 2024, the members and staff of the National Capital Planning Commission recognize Mina Wright for her years of dedicated service as a commissioner. Further, commissioners and staff express their sincere appreciation and thanks for her many years of public service to Washington, D.C. and the nation, and wish her much happiness and success in her future endeavors.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Diane, and all of that and more. Mina, I would entertain a motion for unanimous acclamation for this resolution and a second. Is there a motion?
I so move, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. And a second. And this time, let's not have a vote by name. Can we please just have a voice vote and acclaim this great woman and her contributions to the nation's capital? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that passes clearly. Congratulations. And please let the record show that that was a unanimous vote for Commissioner Mina Wright. Thank you. Mina, do you want to say anything? Would you like to say anything, Mina?
Thank you. I know I've been a pain. But I really do think that what the commission does is really critical. And I think I just want to leave you with one thought. You know, PBS is going to play a leading role in reshaping Washington under the guidance of what's the slogan? It's kind of a slogan now. Bigger, fewer buildings, better buildings, right? Mm-hmm. And it's going to be up to the commissions to make sure that as the government consolidates, it doesn't cannibalize its best buildings in the interest of just schedule and budget. So you're going to have a big role in that. All the commissions are. And I've thought a lot about this. Criticism is not impolite. Don't forget that. That's your job. A lot of people at GSA think that when we're critical, when my office is kind of the U.S. Department of Criticism, because that's what we're supposed to do. It's not rude. It always makes a bet for a better project.
Oh, lost your sound.
We're also sort of stirred up by the lack of civility that we're all feeling has sort of permeated all parts of society, it seems. But that doesn't mean that we have to suddenly accept and be polite, and in the interest of being polite, theoretically, everything that comes to us and say, oh, that's just lovely, because sometimes it's just not. And our job is to make sure that we hold our colleagues' feet to the fire and do the best they can. And sometimes that means criticizing them. So rock on. You got a big job to play over the next decade.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Wright. And don't hesitate to watch our monthly meetings virtually and share your thoughts in the chat line or call us and give us good sound advice going forward. But thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you, Mina.
Appreciate it.
And well, we're grateful to you. And now the report of the Executive Director, Mr. Acosta, please.
Thank you, Chair Goodman, and good afternoon. Mina, you're not off the hook yet. So on behalf of the NCPC staff, I would also like to thank you for your service to the commission. Your accomplishments at the commission and at GSA speak for themselves, but I really think your most important contribution is being our champion for design excellence on matters big and small. And you always encourage us to do the right thing. So I know you don't want me to belabor this farewell, so I will just end by saying all the best to you on your next adventure. As part of our ongoing centennial activities, NCPC staff Brittany Drakeford, Cale Anderson, and Melissa Linshaw will present at the annual DC History Conference on Saturday, April 6th at 11:45 a.m. at the MLK Central Library. Their panel will explore the complicated legacy of planning pioneer and former NCPC Chair Harlan Bartholomew and the resulting historic planning inequities and their impacts on the Washington residents. We hope the public will attend this conference. This concludes my report. You do have my written report in your packets, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I apologize. Thank you very much, Mr. Acosta. Does the commission have any questions for Mr. Acosta? Hearing none. Was there someone? I'm sorry. Okay, hearing none. Agenda item number 6 is a legislative update. Ms. Schuyler, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing to report today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Schuyler. Does the commission have any questions for Ms. Schuyler? Very good. Hearing none. Agenda item number 7 is the consent calendar. And there are 3 items this month on the consent calendar. The first item is to approve comments on the draft Joint Base Anacostia Bowling Installation Facility Standards. This has been submitted by the Department of the Air Force. The second item is to approve the preliminary and final building plans with comments for the Theodore Roosevelt Federal Building antenna modification. This proposal was submitted by the General Services Administration. And the last consent calendar item is to approve the final master plan for the University of the District of Columbia Van Ness campus, as submitted by the University of the District of Columbia. Are there any questions or discussion regarding the consent calendar?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the 3 items 7A through 7C in the consent agenda.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hewlett. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. There has been a motion and a second. Ms. Sullivan, can you confirm these and take the roll call vote?
Yes, Commissioner Hewlett made the motion and Commissioner Argo seconded. Okay, so we'll do the vote. Commissioner Steingasser,
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon,
Yes.
Commissioner Stidham,
Yes.
Commissioner Argo,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hewlett,
Yes.
Chair Goodman,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon,
Yes.
Commissioner Cash,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Giacchetti.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The motion carries. Agenda item number 8A is a request to approve preliminary and final site and building plans for the District of Columbia Archives building. Mr. Weil will be making the presentation today.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen. Okay, let me know when you can see the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and members of the Commission. The District Department of General Services, or DGS, has submitted preliminary and final plans for a new DC Archives and Records building to be located in Northwest Washington, DC, on land that is now part of the University of District of Columbia's main Van Ness campus. As a district project, our commission has an advisory review role, and we are considering issues like sustainability, landscaping, lighting, and project goals and objectives. NCPC previously reviewed this project as a concept submission last July in 2023, and we provided a number of comments related to design sustainability, landscaping, lighting, and security. And as I walk you through my presentation, I will describe how DGS has addressed our previous design comments through two notable changes made to the proposed design of the site. So here's the project location in the southwestern corner of the UDC campus. The site is currently occupied by UDC's Building 41, which is known as the College of Arts and Sciences building. Currently, the building is only partially occupied right now with a child care facility, and the building also houses the Felix E. Grant Jazz Archives collection. The 158,000 square foot, 6-level brutalist style building has a massive look and was completed in 1979. The building is prominent in the area based on its 90-foot height and octagonal shape, which is distinctive from the other rectilinear buildings on the UDC campus. The building exterior is a mixture of cast-in-place and architectural precast concrete with very few windows, and today the building is obsolete based on its inefficient interior and dated mechanical systems. Here's a comparison between the existing site with Building 41 on the left and the proposed new DC Archives building on the right. The district mayor's office selected the proposed site after a multi-year study that identified the project's programmatic requirements and considered multiple alternative locations in an effort to meet the city's needs for long-term archival and record storage. The project goals focus on preserving the district's rich history, providing a state-of-the-art modern facility, supporting other district agencies through information sharing, and constructing a sustainable facility that would meet LEED Gold certification. This graphic compares the two building footprints and their respective locations on the site, with the archive building encompassing a ground area of approximately 30,000 square feet compared to the existing Building 41's smaller 26,000 square foot ground area. Here's a comparison between the existing and future buildings along Van Ness Street looking toward the north, which shows their differences in scale. The new archive building would be located on the UDC campus, but would not be managed by UDC. Rather, the city would operate, manage, and control the new facility through its Office of Public Records, which is part of the mayor's office. The new building design would reflect a combination of brutalist design elements, which is the predominant style on the UDC campus, and the more modern elements of UDC's Student Union Center, and the design of the new building remains largely unchanged from DGS's previous submission to NCPC for review last summer. Approximately 2/3 of the building's ground level would be used as public space, situated in its southern and eastern ground floor areas, looking out towards Van Ness Street and UDC's Denard Plaza, and service-related uses would occupy the building's remaining ground floor area along its north and west sides. And here you can see the building's main public entrance facing Van Ness Street that would lead into a grand open glass lobby area, and the building's delivery, receiving, and loading access would be accommodated from a new access drive along the building's west side. The building's second, third, and fourth levels would be allocated to archival staff work areas, shown here as the brown shaded spaces, and storage areas, shown here in green. And then here's the penthouse plan, shown here on the right. Here you can see the building's 334 rooftop PV solar panels, as well as its partial green roof area. And these elements would contribute to the building's LEED Gold design, which is a key project goal. Although our commission previously encouraged the applicant to attain LEED Platinum, DGS has determined that LEED Platinum is simply not feasible based on the limited size of the site, which does not have enough space to accommodate the number of PV solar panels necessary, over 1,700, to provide for the building's total power needs. Thus, the applicant is applying for a waiver from the district's net zero renewable energy requirement under the Greener Government Buildings Act, and DGS will continue to explore alternative measures to fulfill the goals of the legislation. And we highlight these points in the final executive director's recommendation comments. The building's future use as an archive and records repository does require very strict interior temperature and humidity control systems, as well as a number of other unique functional needs that include accommodating 18-foot floor-to-floor height, stored shelving systems, preventing all natural light from intruding into storage spaces, which requires significant portions of the building facade to be designed without fenestration. And the new building must balance a mix of public access and perimeter security. And this is reflected in the current site design, which includes a mix of anti-vehicle perimeter security elements located adjacent to the Van Ness Street side of the site, as shown here on the slide. The new security regime was added to the project since our review last summer, based on a security and threat assessment, which determined the building's need for a federal security 3 design. And this is similar to other government-operated archival facilities in the region. The new security would be integrated into the site, completely outside of the public street space. And these elements would include a service drive security gate, retaining walls, sunken bioretention areas, a low anti-vehicle security fence, and bollards across both pedestrian walkways into the site from Van Ness Street. Here's a colored perspective looking into the site towards the archive building from Van Ness Street. And although not reflected here, these security elements would be partially obscured by the site's new landscaping and existing street trees. Here's another perspective that looks out toward Van Ness Street in the opposite direction away from the building. Here are two renderings of the future project site that illustrate the security elements without street trees to give you a better idea of how these additional security measures would blend into the site's landscape. Here's a section that illustrates the elevated street space on the left with the concrete retaining wall and an adjacent sunken bioswale area, which would form a protective trench line next to the site's lower pedestrian plaza area. And here's a rendering of the site with the street trees added. And we do reflect the addition of these new security elements as well as their need based on a previous threat assessment in our executive director's comments. Here is the new landscape plan, and in response to previous comments from our commission and CFA, the applicant has notably increased the number of new trees on the site, especially along the west and east sides of the building. Here's a comparison between the previous plan on the left, which shows 35 new trees, and the current plan on the right, which shows a mix of 79 mostly native new trees on the future site. The applicant is incorporating some last-minute refinements into the final plan, including the addition of common milkweed to increase the plan's biodiversity, along with the plan's original proposed butterfly milkweed. And the applicant has also agreed to replace a number of cultivars with straight species plants, and to replace several non-native trees with native species, in particular river birch, Tilia americana redmond, and flowering dogwood trees. Of the many plant species in the plan, only 10 are non-native and non-invasive, which is consistent with guidance from NCPC's Pollinators Best Practices Resource Guide, as these non-native plants will increase the area's biodiversity and resilience within the urban environment there. In general, the site's landscape plan would be appropriate for the site, with a design that is intended to be drought resistant, with reduced maintenance and biodiverse, with a thoughtful mix of plant species that meet the unique characteristics of the site, with a shallow soil depth above UDC's underground garage, The plan does show a lawn area, which is intended to be a usable outdoor space for nearby UDC students. And finally, the design meets district and industry requirements that limit the use of plants that will attract insects and pose a threat to the building's historic collections through infestations. Our executive director's recommendation notes the revised plans increase in on-site trees, as well as the addition of common milkweed to the plan, as these changes are especially beneficial to the design. Here's a closer view of the building's prominent main entry and lobby area. And here's a view of the new building looking across Denard Plaza from the UDC campus. And again, the basic design of the archive building does remain the same as from the previous submission last summer. Here's the building's west-facing facade with its delivery and service areas. And you can see the positive visual benefit of the additional trees and landscaping on the site since our previous concept review last summer. The project's lighting plan shows exterior overhang and soffit, recessed down lighting, recessed lighting on handrails, pole lights between the trees, and recessed lighting at the entry canopy, among other elements. And in general, the applicant has designed the project to minimize glare and eliminate spillover and light pollution based on Illuminating Engineering Society guidelines and International Dark Sky Association principles. And we note this in our final executive director's findings. And finally, we note the applicant continues to coordinate the project with community stakeholders and other district agencies to ensure the project will meet the needs of the city and the public. And we note this as part of the executive director's recommendation comments that are before us here today. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Here is the complete executive director's recommendation over the next 2 slides. And on behalf of the applicant, we do have a number of project representatives here today who are available for questions, including land use attorney Eric DeBeer, project designers Brian Farrell and Scott Texera, their landscape architect Sandra Sacazzo, Dr. Lopez Matthews, who is the state archivist and public records administrator, and finally Javier Dusan, who is UDC's vice president for facilities and real estate management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weil. And do any commissioners have questions now for Mr. Weil? Yes, yes.
So I had one question. Mr. Weil, I recall that there was a community garden that has to be relocated because of the changes in the building, but either I may have missed it in the EDR and in your presentation about in the landscape plan about the actual relocation of those. I didn't see it in the plans and maybe I missed it.
Yeah, I believe that will be relocated to somewhere else on the UDC campus. However, I do not have a specific location for you. I wonder if at some point someone from the applicant team can detail that more for you. Scott or Brian?
Yeah, so this is Scott Texera. I'm the managing principal at Hartman Cox Architects, responsible for the design of this project. And there's an area that the university has designated immediately to the north of our development site. There does exist graphics and exhibits that were prepared, but I'm not sure how they relate to the package that was submitted to NCPC, and I may lean on my project architect colleague, Brian Farrell, to explain that, but it's about 9,000 square feet. The amount of garden space that our project is going to displace, I think, is 2/3 of that, approximately 6,000 square feet. And the idea is that within this 9,000 square foot location on the site, that the complement of garden space that's being disrupted by our project can be accommodated there, along with some existing stormwater management equipment, that the combination of the gardens and some of the existing equipment can all fit in that 9,000 square foot region. That, and then Eric, I'm not sure if you might also, this is the land use council for the project team, might also be able to recall how
I
the
recall it being-
documentation.
I recall it, the relocation being to the north. I guess I expected to see that
it would be
in the
outside
application.
this. Sorry, Commissioner Stidham. It would be outside the scope of the archives project, though, as NCPC is reviewing it today, because it's outside of this site, but it's on the campus.
And I can get that exact location for you, Commissioner Stidham.
Okay, I guess I was just expecting to see it. I know it's outside the scope of the review of the building, but since it was being relocated because of the building, I guess I expected to see that shown somewhere that was being accounted for.
I believe it is shown on the campus plan submission rather than on the building submission.
Right, which is the action that was just taken on the consent agenda. Right, so that package, I think, documents the garden relocation.
Okay, great. I'll go back and look there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Stidham. Good question. Are there any other questions for Mr. Weil or for the design team? Hearing none, we have, thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Weil and our guests. But we do have one person signed up to speak today, and Mr. Bernard Byrne. And you will have 3 minutes to provide your testimony. Please let us know when you are ready.
Yes, I am. I don't know if you can see me on the video. I've seen, but anyway, on January 4th, NCP staff issued a pollinated best practices research guide, which is referenced in earlier discussion. The guide summarizes information in federal documents and other sources that support the restoration of falling populations of butterflies, monarch butterflies, and other pollinators. The guide recommends the installation of native plants and discourages the use of cultivars, which often do not feed pollinators and may be toxic to insects. However, a large number of species in the applicant's planning pool are not consistent with the guide's recommendations. This is more than I've seen in other projects, including some I've recently commented on. These inconsistencies include the planting pool contains 10 species that are not native to North America. One of the worst is tall fescue, a turf grass that, like others commonly used on lawns, is on many invasive plant lists. These have done much damage to America's Midwestern prairies and other natural ones. The archive building requires few, if any, lawns to accomplish its mission. The applicant should therefore replace its planned lawns with areas that contain native plants that support pollinators. It was recently stated that DC students will be able to use a lawn. That might be true, but there are a lot of other lawns on that campus for them to use. We really don't need another one. And as I say, we need pollinators much more than lawns, especially when others are nearby. The planting pool contains 8 species that are native to North America, but are not native to the National Capital Region. These are in addition to the ones that are not native to North America. The applicant will replace all non-native plants with those that are native to the region, not just some. It does no use to increase variety and diversity by planting non-native plants. They can become invasive if they're not already. The planting pool contains 35 cultivars. This is probably a record for what I've seen in your projects. The applicant should replace all of these with the native plant species. If the cultivars have no native parents, the applicant should replace these species with those that are native to National Capital Planning Commission, National Capital Region. There are a sufficient variety of these natives to permit the applicant to mimic the colors, blossoming times, heights, and other characteristics of the cultivars that they would replace. Replace all of them, not just a few or some. I have provided the applicant with detailed lists of the above plants and their potential replacements. As stated, the applicant has agreed to add native common milkweed and buttonbush to the planting pool and to make additional changes. However, the applicant has not yet specified those changes. It didn't just seem to do it on the thing was during this earlier. Further, the applicant has stated that some native plants, non-native plants, and cultivars will remain. Please therefore
3
require.
minutes.
Okay, please therefore require the applicant to identify all plants that will remain in the planting pool for public review before approving this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Are there any questions from the commission for Mr. Byrne? Hearing none, we will start with a motion to approve the preliminary and final site and building plans for the District of Columbia's archive building. Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the building and site plans pursuant to 40 USC.
I
Section.
think if I could just edit that, Vice Chair Hewlett, I think we don't want to vote for approval yet, or it's just to, I think what we want to do is
It's a motion for discussion.
I do see it is approved, these plans for discussion. Yes. Okay.
for
Thank you
discussion.
so
Okay.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane. And thank you, Vice Chair Hewlett. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. And Diane, could you repeat the motion, please? And then,
And if you need any
call for the vote.
clarification.
Mhm. And then call for
Yes,
the vote.
yes, Commissioner Hewlett made the motion to move for a discussion, and Commissioner Argo seconded it.
Okay. So there's been a motion and a second. So now we're going to begin our deliberations, and we're going to begin with Commissioner Cash.
I just want to thank the team for finally getting this over the finish line. This has been in development for, I think, about 10 years, looking at different sites, and I think it's been a really good solution that's come forward. I also want to congratulate the team on getting a little bit more or closer to our clean energy standards by switching over to electric instead of gas. I think that's an important aspect of the project, and I'm excited to see it move forward.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Cash. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. No additional comments from me.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Cicchetti. Commissioner Cicchetti. Must have stepped away.
You have to step away, Chair Goodman.
Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioner Steingasser.
Yes, I'd also like to compliment the team on getting this project so close to being done. And I do encourage them to see if they can't get more pollinators integrated into the site and less invasive species. But otherwise, I'm very happy to see this project moving.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Steingasser. Commissioner McMahon.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's congratulations to the team, both the commission staff and the design team for very good work to take our comments and make needed changes to what's an important building necessary for the district's functioning. And I think it's works pretty well on that site. Other than that, I have no comments.
Thank you, Commissioner McMahon. Commissioner Stidham.
This has been a long time coming and definitely a great need for the district. So congratulations to the team for getting this far. And just back to the community gardens, I was able to find that on the master plan, and I would have to say I'm very disappointed in the location that was found for the community gardens. Not only is it small, but it is in the middle of 3 buildings, which I doubt will be very productive for growing a garden there. So I encourage you to continue to look at that more. But as for the building itself, very nice job and great effort there.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Stidham. Thank you for that research as well. Commissioner Argo.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I really don't have anything to add. I think the comments that have come before me are not exhaustive, but pointed and appropriate. And I sign on to those. I'm very happy to see this project move to the point where it is now. And I think we're all going to be pleased with what comes out the other side. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Argo. Vice Chair Hewlett.
Yes, I too agree. This has been a long time coming and it's very important. And I would echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I think there is a vast improvement since the preliminary review concept plan. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hewitt. Commissioner Green, please.
Thank you. No, thank you. Appreciate the work that the applicant has done since the previous iteration, especially for me, the improvements in energy efficiency and energy use is much appreciated, and as well as the strategies to expand that that efficiency beyond the footprint of the building itself. And so again, I appreciate that, and look forward to seeing the project move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Green. Commissioner Wright.
Well, here it comes. Please accept this in the spirit in which it is offered. I think that there's just one sour note in the composition for me, and I think it's these post and rail, the fencing, the perimeter security. I think you can do better. I mean, at the very least, maybe just a different color. But I would urge you, since this is on a college campus, we did it at Commerce, and I think you could maybe look at putting some hardened street furniture in for people to sit down. It is a college campus after all, and it could serve both purposes and be a little less obtrusive. Otherwise, I think it's a lovely building, and the landscape plan is much improved. I'm not going to argue about the plant species again, other than to say, too much of one thing is not a good thing. But I would just urge that you look again at some of the perimeter security elements and quiet them down.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Dixon.
Yeah, thank you all for all the work done. I agree with Commissioner Wright. I believe that I constantly been asking for furniture that's functional and available, particularly on the campus, where students like to sit and talk and hopefully whatever, but furniture would be great rather than just protecting barriers that don't offer any function. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. I would like to say too that I appreciate the additional effort that has been made to make the building more sustainable. I appreciate the comments on the perimeter security from Commissioner Wright, and I'm concerned about the community garden. I am going to say that. I'm glad that that came up. I do think that this is going to be a wonderful addition to the campus, and I do strongly endorse these kinds of partnerships. I think the partnership between local government and the educational institution is very strong. It's powerful, and it does contribute to sustainability for both. It's a great partnership. So I just want to commend the team on that effort, and hope that we can hear some follow-up at some point in time on those two concerns that were expressed today. Are there any further comments or questions? Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, Ms. Sullivan, can you confirm the motion and the second and take the vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Hewlett made the motion and Commissioner Argo seconded it. I'll now take the vote by roll call. Commissioner Steingasser?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Commissioner Stidham?
Yes.
Commissioner Argo?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewlett?
Yes.
Chair Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon?
Yes.
Commissioner Cash?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Abstain.
And Commissioner Giacchetti?
Abstain.
Thank you. The motion has carried. Next is the agenda item 8B, accepting the final Monumental Core Streetscape Design Guidelines and the small scale elements. And today the presentation will be made by Mr. Ben Turpin. And welcome to the presentation world, Mr. Turpin.
Thank you. Pull my screen up here, just one moment. Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and Commission members. I'm here today to present the Small Scale Elements Streetscape Design Guidelines.
We don't see your presentation yet.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I thought it shared. How's that?
Now we see it. Thank you.
Great. Sorry about that. I'm here today to present the Streetscape Design Guidelines, part of the Monumental Core Streetscape project. Today, we request Commission acceptance of these guidelines. I will also present an amendment to the Vertical Element Streetscape Design Guidelines, which the Commission reviewed and approved last year. I'll start off with a brief recap of the project, including project phases, the urban design framework, and vertical and surface elements, and then present the Small Scale Elements Streetscape Guidelines. For each component, there's a set of principles that inform the guidelines. These principles are summarized in attachment 3 in your meeting packet. I'll then go over the minor amendment to the vertical elements, and we'll wrap up with an overview of how the guidelines will be used, as well as next steps. To provide a quick refresher, I'll recap the purpose and background of the Streetscape Manual. The manual was first created in 1992 and consisted of construction details as well as specifications. The agencies used this technical document to achieve a coordinated and consistent streetscape for roadways within the central area of the city, as well as in the vicinity of the National Mall. The manual was used on 25 capital improvement projects between 1992 and 2012. The purpose of the guidelines is to achieve a high-quality streetscape and to improve connections and relationships between the monumental core and surrounding neighborhoods. Within Washington's monumental core, streetscapes should reinforce its unique civic role as the nation's capital and create a welcoming and livable environment for people, one that cultivates a sense of pride, permanence, and dignity. The monumental core is a place where details really matter, and its streetscapes must meet elevated standards. The guidelines include best environmental practices as well as new emerging technologies. The new manual will be used by agencies to plan, develop, and coordinate streetscape projects. Additionally, NCPC and CFA staff will use the manual during project review. NCPC is leading this update in collaboration with the Interagency Working Group, or IWG, comprising the 11 federal and district agencies listed here on the left. We received extensive input from agency subject matter experts, shown on the right, and we engaged with agencies such as DC Water, HEPCO, DC Fire and EMS, and the Department of Public Works. We appreciate their time and participation. As a reminder, the project has 4 phases, seen on the left. Phase 1 included the urban design framework and lighting policy. We're here today to talk about Phase 2, specifically the design guidelines for small-scale elements, as well as the minor amendment to the vertical elements. In 2023, the Commission released the draft small-scale element guidelines for public comment, and staff hosted 2 public meetings. We received comments from CFA, interest groups, as well as individuals. Staff addressed the comments and incorporated them into the final guidelines in front of you today. Those comments are summarized in attachment 4 in your meeting packet. Before getting into the guidelines, it's important to recap the urban design framework, which provides an organizing principle for guideline development. The framework includes 3 distinct street categories that help inform the degrees of consistency in the streetscape. We have the radiating and edging streets, shown in magenta. Pennsylvania Avenue is a radiating street, while Constitution Avenue is an edging street. Then there are the connecting and traversing streets, shown in pale pink. 7th Street, which runs across downtown, Chinatown, and the National Mall, falls into this category. Finally, there are the local streets, which are shown in white, and these serve as a functional network for the city. All 3 street categories I described contain a range of streetscape elements. We organized these into 3 groups: vertical, surface, and small scale, the latter being today's primary focus. It's important to note that the guidelines only apply to public space from the property line to the curb, and only when there's a major site redevelopment project or a capital improvement project. The guidelines are not applicable to routine maintenance and repair, though agencies can choose to use them in these instances at their discretion. I mentioned earlier that the purpose of the manual is to achieve consistency across streetscapes. Here, you can see the degree of consistency can vary based on the street category, shown on the left, and then the type of streetscape element, shown on the right. Whereas vertical elements are highly consistent within the streetscape, small-scale elements may be more variable. To provide broader context for the small-scale elements, I'll quickly review the vertical and surface elements. The vertical elements have two components, street lights and trees, which are highly consistent within the streetscape, traversing through and unifying the monumental core and city. Surface elements contribute to performance landscapes and streetscape character and include landscape and planting, stormwater management, pavements, and pedestrian circulation. They can contribute to continuity, set an area apart, or serve to transition among character areas. Small-scale elements have two components, furnishings and civic infrastructure. Furnishings provide pedestrian comfort and convenience, while civic infrastructure provides services to pedestrians, cyclists, and emergency services. We'll start today with furnishings, which provide functional amenities for pedestrians and contribute vitality to public space. Our first furnishing is benches. Benches are important because they improve pedestrian experience and comfort, providing a place for folks to rest, socialize, or observe. We can find an existing variety of bench styles, materials, and conditions within the monumental core today. Around the National Mall and places with national significance like the White House and along Pennsylvania Avenue, benches tend to have a similar look and are made of wood and metal. As you can see by this map, there are currently many styles of benches found across the monumental core. The dominant styles are the National Park Service bench, located around the National Mall and noted in purple, and the Victor Stanley bench at President's Park and Capitol grounds, which is noted in yellow. The new bench guidance helps define different character areas and distinguish the monumental core from the surrounding urban fabric. We've organized these guidelines into three topics: placement, appearance, and function, each containing a high-level principle. In the interest of time for today's presentation, I'll just provide a summary of those principles. For benches, the guidelines support providing seating to improve pedestrian comfort and convenience for people of all ages and abilities. There has been one minor adjustment to the bench guidelines. Over time, the Victorian benches in President's Park will be replaced by the NPS standard bench, updated to be ADA accessible, though following the design aesthetic of the original Park Service design. Next, we have waste receptacles. Receptacles for trash, recycling, and other waste types are important because they contribute to the aesthetic, functional, and environmental quality of the streetscape. There are many receptacle styles around the monumental core, from historic styles like the original PADC to the standard Victor Stanley receptacles that the NPS uses, to branded receptacles from business improvement districts and universities. There are many challenges with waste receptacles, especially during periods of high visitation and use. Challenges include capacity and waste overflow, odor, the mixing of trash and recycling, pest issues, especially with rats and insects, and rain infiltration. This map shows the locations of trash and recycling containers. Victor Stanley and the modified PADC style are the most prevalent. The guidance encourages waste receptacles to be located near crosswalks, street corners, and in areas of high pedestrian traffic, and recommends co-locating trash and recycling receptacles to prevent commingling. This map shows the locations of suggested bench styles, waste receptacle styles, which are reflective of their particular character areas. The guiding principles support conveniently locating receptacles that minimize clutter, promote recycling, and improve the pedestrian experience. Since our last presentation, the IWG has incorporated box waste receptacles into the guidelines. These high-capacity enclosed receptacles are meant to supplement the existing palette of waste receptacles and may be used throughout the monumental core within areas of high pedestrian volume. The benefit of these receptacles include their compacting feature, which allows each bin to hold significantly more waste than a standard bin, their enclosed nature, which keeps out pests and rain, and their integrated technology, powered by solar panels, which can alert staff when the receptacles are approaching capacity. This minimizes the need of staff to make rounds to check the fullness of receptacles. The IWG convened a group of agency subject matter experts to discuss whether these receptacles would be appropriate within the cultural landscape of the National Mall and Monumental Core. Ultimately, we determined they were appropriate if they met specific location requirements, such as not locating adjacent to historic structures, as well as graphic and branding guidance, seen at the right, to keep the appearance cohesive with other receptacles and streetscape elements. There is also a maintenance requirement, as these do require more resources to maintain than a standard receptacle. Now we'll move to the second group of small-scale elements. Civic infrastructure provides service to pedestrians, cyclists, and emergency services, or forms part of the connected utility system. We'll begin with bicycle racks. Bike racks are important because they support multimodal transportation, provide parking for micromobility vehicles, and reduce streetscape clutter. These have not had any significant updates since the Commission presentation last spring. We can find several types of bike racks around the monumental core, shown here in the map. The working group identified areas where there is a high demand for additional bike parking, noted with the purple dots. The guidelines recommend U-racks, seen in the photos on the right, throughout the monumental core, primarily because they're more versatile and secure. As we replace or install new bike racks over time, we'll achieve a more unified style throughout. The guidelines also reference scooter corrals as well as geofenced areas where the riding of micromobility vehicles is restricted. The guidelines recommend adding additional bike racks near these crowded scooter corral areas, shown in yellow, as well as on the periphery of the geofenced areas, shown in red. The guidelines support providing durable and user-friendly bicycle racks to promote multimodal transportation and provide and expand parking within designated areas. The next element is post and chain. They are important for guiding pedestrian movement and protecting trees and vegetation from foot traffic. There have likewise been no significant updates to this element. Currently, there are varied applications for post and chain. They're used to protect landscape areas and, in some cases, to manage curbside activities, as shown in the bottom left image. The guidelines encourage placing post and chain at the backside edge of the pedestrian walkways and sidewalks to avoid hazards to pedestrians. So the bottom left image is a practice we are actively discouraging within the guidelines. Post and chain is primarily used by the National Park Service in high pedestrian traffic areas. And in summary, the guidelines support using post and chain to guide pedestrian circulation and protect sensitive environments, such as tree root zones or planting areas. Next up, we have electric vehicle charging stations. Electric vehicles, or EVs, help advance sustainability goals by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We anticipate that EV chargers will become more common and prominent in the streetscape as infrastructure expands nationwide in response to adoption by consumers, better technology, and robust federal and district policy and investment. There are 3 types of chargers, levels 1, 2, and 3. These guidelines deal specifically with level 2 chargers, which typically take several hours to charge and are often the type found within public streetscapes. Currently, there are 2 chargers on the National Mall, though both are currently out of operation due to maintenance issues. The guidelines support promoting EV charging in a manner that is well coordinated with curbside uses and minimizes potential disruptions in public space. The guidelines have been updated to reflect district policy. After extensive coordination with IWG and DDOT, we added guidance regarding EV charging station locations. This guidance supports DDOT policies that prioritize transit and micromobility, such as bus and bike lanes along the curb, over street parking for personal vehicles, including parking for EV charging. The new guidance encourages the location of charging stations adjacent to agencies or institutions whose mission, identity, or educational objectives align with promoting alternative fuel technologies or sustainability. For instance, this could include agencies such as the Smithsonian, EPA, or Department of Energy. The updated guidance also prohibits EV charging stations along radial streets and limits their use on edging, traversing, and connecting streets. This minimizes impacts to historically significant vistas, viewsheds, and resources. The installation of charging stations requires significant utility work. Therefore, we incorporated additional guidance to protect trees, root systems, and environmentally sensitive areas. We also highlighted the importance of maintenance. The guidelines support the goal of emission reduction and pivoting from gas to electric vehicles while also accounting for the unique character of the National Mall and Monumental Core. The next element is parking pay stations. The multi-space parking pay stations are important because they provide a convenient payment option and reduce the number of individual parking meters. There have not been updates to these guidelines since the last presentation. As you can see in the map, parking stations are conveniently located around the Monumental Core, particularly on Jefferson and Madison Drives and on Constitution Avenue. In summary, these guidelines support providing parking pay stations for people of all abilities to increase convenience for drivers and improve the pedestrian experience. The next small scale element is water stations. They're important because drinking water improves pedestrian comfort, enjoyment, and safety within the public space. These have not had any major updates. Several styles of water stations exist within the monumental core, including several interesting historic styles seen at the right, which are found on the Capitol campus. The newer NPS style, shown on the bottom left, features a filling station for water bottles and is designed to be accessible. In summary, these guidelines support increasing availability of water stations that are universally accessible, serviceable, and functioning. The next element is fire hydrants. They are important for access to water supply and for public safety. These also have not had any updates since the previous presentation. The standard color for fire hydrants in public space is green, and the black fire hydrants are decommissioned. To summarize, the guidelines support providing fire hydrants that meet color safety codes and maintain safe and efficient hydrant operations. Next up, we have utility boxes. These are important for supporting a critical network of civic infrastructure. These have also not had any significant updates. There are several types of utility boxes that have similar requirements. We've organized them into two groups, which you can see here on the table. Traffic and communication utility boxes facilitate traffic movement and communication operations, including Wi-Fi and cable. They need to be located near street intersections for technical and safety reasons. Electric and water utility boxes facilitate basic energy and water utility operations, and these are typically located closer to buildings for meter reading purposes. Utility boxes are scattered throughout the monumental core, and they vary in size, with heights between 1 and 6 feet. Over time, we'll see fewer utility boxes as DDOT is co-locating smaller units into larger utility boxes. In summary, the guidelines support accommodating utility boxes in public space that minimize clutter, blend with their surroundings, maintain efficient operations, and avoid impeding pedestrian circulation. Small cell infrastructure is an important emerging technology for providing daily and emergency event communications to residents, workers, visitors, emergency response, and security providers. DDOT guidance limits the quantity and placement of this infrastructure around the National Mall and is developing a standard standalone pole, which CFA approved the design of at its March 21st meeting. Currently, federal agencies are working to address the quantity and placement of these poles on the National Mall. Once this work is complete, the Streetscape Guide will be updated to appropriately reference the district in federal guidelines and the small cell pole design. We'll now review the one minor change to the vertical element guidelines. When the Commission approved the vertical elements last year, we noted that there were some minor technical questions to resolve regarding pole heights along several street segments. In collaboration with DDOT, these issues have been resolved, and this map reflects the final streetlight guidance. That concludes the review of the specific elements found within the Streetscape design guidelines. Once accepted by Commission, the small-scale guidelines will be merged with the urban design framework, vertical elements, surface elements, appendices, and sample agreements into a single package. It'll be posted to our website and distributed to the IWG and our partner agencies. We'll also be socializing this across agencies to ensure that it is understood and utilized. I'll now touch on next steps. Beyond the Monumental Core Streetscape Design Guidelines, we've also been working on the Companion Streetscape Review Guide. We continue to collaborate with DDOT and the DC Office of Planning to develop guidance for nationally important streets outside of the Monumental Core boundary in order to improve streetscape consistency along these corridors. The map here illustrates the need for this work. We've examined guidance for important streetscapes under district jurisdiction. The colored hatched areas represent 8 neighborhoods with different guiding documents that are sometimes in conflict with each other. Along some corridors, such as 16th Street on axis with the White House, each side of the street is subject to different guidance. We've completed new guidance for 16th Street, which can be seen in the section on right. As the street segments are addressed, the district is using them when planning and executing capital improvement projects or working with developers that are making streetscape improvements in front of their buildings. This slide concludes the content for today's presentation. Additionally, we're working to complete the construction manual update to be completed this year alongside the MOU update, which will formalize how federal and district agencies will continue to collaborate moving forward. In conclusion, the Executive Director recommends the Commission to accept the small-scale element guidelines pursuant to NCPC's Planning Authority, accept the update to Streetlight Map S1 in the vertical elements guidelines, find that the Streetscape Design Guidelines are consistent with the comprehensive plan and build upon the Urban Design Streetscape Framework, commend the Interagency Working Group for its collaboration, encourage the working group to begin using the guidelines for project planning, design, construction, and review, and direct NCPC staff to use the Streetscape design guidelines to inform the construction manual update. This concludes my presentation, and I'll stay on for questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Turpin. Do commissioners have any questions? Are there any questions for Mr. Turpin? Hearing none, I want to thank you very much, Mr. Turpin. That was an excellent presentation, very thorough and all very good work. Is there a motion to accept the final Monumental Core Streetscape Design Guidelines, small scale elements?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Hewlett. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very, very much for the second, and from Commissioner Stidham. Now we are open for commission discussion. Can everyone please turn on your cameras, and I'll start deliberations with Vice Chair Hewlett, please.
I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this, and appreciate what a stellar job has been done and some of the recommendations. So I don't, other than that, I have no other comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Hewlett. Commissioner Green.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the granular detail that goes into work like this, and look forward to seeing it be enacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Green. Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and if it's done really well, you won't really notice. And that's a good thing. You know, I mean, there's a lot of clutter out there. So I think it's a really important thing to do. I mean, the efforts by, gosh, I guess it was the Park Service cleaning up the different kinds of signs and reducing the number has made a difference. So I think taken together, you should be in the promised land, in the not too distant future.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Dixon.
Yeah, also, I'm happy to see this effort. I would ask one question. I noticed that the benches don't have a divider in them, and as annoying as it might be sometime, it prevents them from being places where people can sleep and lay down if there's a divider in the bench. But I'm sure you all have thought through that. I just raised it as a concern.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Dixon. That was an interesting comment. Thank you, Commissioner Cash.
No other comments, but thanks for the presentation. I thought it was very informative.
Thank you, Commissioner Cash. Commissioner Davis.
No additional comments from me either, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Giacchetti.
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Giacchetti. Commissioner Stein-Gasser.
Yes, thank you. I want to compliment the work and the presentation. It was all very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stein-Gasser. Commissioner McMahon.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate the work of the staff. A tremendously detailed product, I think, over a broad area. And as I think Commissioner Wright had it done well, done right, it won't be noticed, but that's always a good thing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McMahon. Commissioner Stidham.
Having been part of many of these discussions early on, I have to say that the amount of work that was undertaken here is immense. And to the average visitor, the average person on the street, they don't even notice it, to Commissioner Wright's point. And that is really, truly a good thing. It's those of us that look at the street and see all the pieces and pay attention to that detail, who really are responsible for making sure that that we do not clutter the streets. So this is a great piece of work. I know how much work went into this and how many meetings and conversations. So very congratulations to the team for such good work.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Argo.
Echo Commissioner Stidham's comments, especially about the staff work, and to make the point that they may be small scale elements, but there's a lot of them, and individually and in total, we may not think they're super impactful at one point in time, but I think they are, especially in the Monumental Core. Appreciate the thoughtful work that's been done by the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Argo. We're very appreciative of all the commissioners' comments, and I want to say that the presentation was very good, very strong for a first-time presenter. I want to thank the commission, or on behalf of the commission, I want to thank the district, the Park Service, General Services Administration, and the entire interagency work group for this terrific work. And as many have pointed out, it may seem as though it's not the most important part of the work that goes into the capital region, but if we want it to disappear, it requires this kind of attention to detail, and that's exactly what it does. It serves and it disappears. So this resource is going to continue to be very valuable to the agencies as they coordinate and plan and implement future streetscape projects within the Monumental Core. It'll be a great guide for NCPC, but also for the CFA as they review projects, as we review projects. These guidelines will help us to achieve consistent and beautiful streetscapes surrounding our nation's most important cultural and governmental institutions and assets. So I do commend all who have been participating in this planning and in this final product. So it's just excellent. Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions from anyone on the commission? Hearing none, Ms. Sullivan, could you confirm the motion in the second and take the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Hewlett made the motion and Commissioner Stidham seconded it. I will now take the vote by roll call. Commissioner Steingasser?
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Commissioner Stidham?
Yes.
Commissioner Argo?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewlett?
Yes.
Chair Goodman?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Dixon?
Yes.
Commissioner Cash?
Yes.
Commissioner Davis?
Abstain.
And Commissioner Giacchetti.
Abstain.
Thank you very much. The motion has carried. We now have 2 information presentations remaining, and the first update is on the Beyond Granite initiative, and we have Ms. McCran to make the presentation for us today.
Great, thanks. Good afternoon, commissioners. Can you see my screen all right? Wonderful.
Yes.
We're excited today to share findings and takeaways from the pilot exhibition of Beyond Granite, titled Pulling Together, that was on display last August to September. The focus of the presentation today will also be on the audience engagement survey, the public conclusions from that. And I'm also pleased to announce that the report will be available in May, and we will make the commission aware when that is available and on the website. We'll share a little bit more about that near the end of the presentation as well. Presenting today with me will be Teresa Durkin, the Executive Vice President of the Trust for the National Mall, who's our partner and lead on this effort, along with Dr. Elizabeth Morton, who provided evaluation consultation for the pilot. So we'll provide a brief reminder of the project, the goals, the timeline, and what we accomplished in this very short grant window of 27 months. And then Dr. Morton, again, will take us through the highlights of her findings from that audience engagement survey, as well as other assessments she conducted. Teresa will wrap things up at the end to discuss what's next for Beyond Granite. So with that, I'd like for Teresa to continue the presentation.
Thank you, Joanna. And good afternoon to everyone. Before turning it over to Dr. Morton to present her audience engagement findings, I'd like to just provide a brief recap about the Beyond Granite program and the exhibition Pulling Together that was on view last summer on the National Mall. In 2021, the Trust for the National Mall was invited to join NCPC in a grant proposal to the Mellon Foundation for funding through their Monuments program. We were successful in securing the grant from the foundation with our partners, NCPC and the National Park Service, to create the pilot program called Beyond Granite. Our team worked quickly to create an exhibition with invited artists, and our co-curators were Dr. Paul Farber, Director of Monument Lab, and Dr. Salamisha Tillett. The exhibition was titled Pulling Together and was launched in a short period of time. It was only 18 months from concept to installation.
The installation opened late in August and closed late in September of 2023. At the closing, Dr. Morton, who's been our evaluator from the beginning of the project, began to synthesize and analyze the survey findings that she's going to share with you today. The survey results are one component of the evaluation report that will be published in May, as you've heard from Joanna. And this report and the survey results are important to us in helping to shape the vision of the next iteration of the Beyond Granite program. Next slide. So what is Beyond Granite? We've all experienced the generation-defining moments commemorated on the National Mall, like the AIDS Memorial Quilt in the 1980s, or more recently, an installation called In America, Remember, which was the COVID memorial created by Suzanne Furstenberg. Suzanne is already creating a new work for Freedom Plaza that should be installed this May that addresses gun violence in America. So our program, the Beyond Granite program, sought to build on the legacy of the exhibits like these, which have demonstrated that the National Mall is an extraordinary platform for creating powerful and lasting memories, and especially for artworks that are short-term or ephemeral. Next slide. So this is just a slide about our core team, which of course was the Trust, National Capital Planning Commission, National Park Service, funded by Mellon. A big part of the project co-curators was with Monument Lab, and Justice and Sustainability Associates supported the engagement, and Dr. Morton, of course, is working on the report. So that's the team. And we had 5 primary goals. We wanted to introduce more inclusive and relevant commemorative works in the landscape. We wanted to increase awareness and enthusiasm for temporary artworks installation on the National Mall. We wanted to establish a sustainable and continuing program. So this pilot was our way of learning what it takes to do something like this. And Mellon also pushed us to explore temporary sites off of the National Mall and of course to engage with DC communities. So next slide. So we ended up with a curated exhibition, which included a dynamic series of installations across the mall to create a more inclusive, equitable, and representative process for storytelling on the National Mall. By all accounts, it was successful in facilitating a conversation with the public about the way that the National Mall depicts our national identity. As a pilot project, it illustrated one approach and one set of underrepresented themes. We recognize that. But we see this as a proof of concept that sets the stage for an ongoing program, a sustainable program, to elevate untold stories, and the possibilities are truly limitless, including the nation's historic achievements in science, technology, and the arts, as well as stories about individuals or organization or events. Next slide. And our 6 wonderful artists all had a unique response to the curatorial question, what stories remain untold on the National Mall? And from top left to right, I'll just list the artist. Vanessa German's Of Thee We Sing was the title of her work. Tiffany Chung's work was titled For the Living. Wendy Red Star's The Soil You See. Derek Adams, titled America's Playground, and Ashton T. Crawley's titled Homecoming, and Paul Ramirez Jonas' Let Freedom Ring. So those were the 6 installations and artists. Let's go to the next slide. We'll see the sites across the National Mall. Each artwork was carefully cited with the Park Service with welcome stations, and those welcome stations provided trained staff to engage the public in conversation or creative programming throughout the life of the exhibition, that interaction was key, I think, to the success as well. In some cases, the siting in proximity to other existing monuments and memorials enhanced the message of the artwork. That was certainly 100% the case with Vanessa Germans of Thee We Sing at the base of the steps of the Lincoln, and Wendy Red Star's The Soil You See installation at the Signers Memorial at Constitution Gardens. So with that brief recap to refresh you of what we did, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Morton to share more about the public's response to experiencing the exhibition and some overall recommendations based on the comments and feedback.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Good afternoon, commissioners. It's my honor and privilege to share with you some of the findings from the evaluation report. And just like it's been my honor and privilege to work with so many great partners on this important project, it's really rewarding for me to return to this topic because I was involved, I think, a decade ago in a couple of studies about commemoration with the Park Service and NCPC. And I'm so happy that they have pressed through and continue to explore these important issues of representation and commemoration. As Teresa and Joanna mentioned, I'm going to be focusing today on the audience engagement survey findings with some extrapolation to some general findings that you read more about in the report released in May. So next slide, please. I wanted to give you a really short overview of audience engagement survey. What does that mean in this case? Some people might know this as an intercept survey, but some of the advantages of intercept or audience engagement survey is it allows you to gauge right in the moment what people are experiencing and in a place-specific context. So what are people thinking about? What's their immediate reaction? It allows you to collect views from both intentional visitors and people who might just be stopping by. And it also allows you to collect some baseline data for the purposes of comparison and to support some sort of assertion of project impact or change over time, and maybe even to compare to other projects in the future or other similar projects. So with special thanks to Teresa and the Trust, I was able to hire a team of 6, including me. And there was a core team that worked throughout the month-long exhibition. I also teach in the Sustainable Urban Planning program at GW, so I was able to get some of my students to come in at the end and supplement the survey. We were all trained to approach a random sample of visitors who engaged somehow with the artworks. So, and we figured that out by observation and iterative methodology development. We collected almost 700 surveys, and a remarkable thing about this experience for me and all of us involved was we had about a 90% or more participation rate. Typically in this kind of survey, you'd just be sort of astonished to get a 50% rate. And I think that that really just speaks to the hunger that people had for an exhibition like this. They really wanted to talk about it. They felt almost like they were part of the exhibition by being able to chime in. Obviously, this was an interested audience, typically, who came and engaged with the work. But it was very impressive. I had coached everyone to be ready for rejection. And when I called their references, I said, are people willing to persist even when people say no to them? But we were all astonished and moved by how meaningful participating even in the survey was for the audience. Next slide, please. Just a bit of an overview about demographics. Again, this was a voluntary section, but most people agreed to participate. In terms of where visitors lived. It was evenly split between the district, the larger DMV area.
Hey,
and
Wally. Hey, man.
Hey, man, nothing urgent, man. I'm just calling. Median age of the respondents was about 45 to 64. An interesting finding was 64% were women, almost twice as many as men. And the graphic on the below right shows basically what's true throughout the United States, that the diversity, or for the purposes of this graph, the non-white population increased the younger the age cohort got. I neglected to say we only approached adults just for purposes of appropriate research protocol. Next slide, please. We asked if people had intentionally visited the site or whether they were just passing by. 68% of respondents had come on purpose. Of those who came on purpose, 95% were planning to see other artwork. So those people were usually coming to see the whole exhibition. Of the people who were just passing by, 42% said, yeah, we'll go on and see other artworks now that we know this is here, and others considered it. 91% of respondents said they would be likely to attend a future exhibition like this on the mall. And this went up, percentage went up if you were from the DMV or the district. 97% of DC residents surveyed said they would be likely to attend another exhibit like this. Next slide, please. So the first question we asked, which was intentionally open-ended, before we kind of skewed them with our subsequent questions, was, what do you think you'll remember most about this artwork? Of course, part of the point of a commemorative work is to remember both in the present and in the future. So this was an open-ended question, and I put together, compiled into categories of responses just for purpose of analysis. So of course, aesthetic qualities, like any art exhibit, was cited as a popular response. Color and sound in particular for these artworks really stood out for people as something that they'd remember. The stories of the artwork was actually the most popular response. The surprise and the new perspectives and the new kinds of history brought to the National Mall was memorable for people. Just as an example, in Tiffany Chung's piece, people would say, looking at that map, I never knew that the Vietnamese refugees didn't all come by boat. Or looking at the playground, people would say, I thought I knew about desegregation, but I never thought about it in terms of the playground. So the story really was something that was going to be lodged in people's minds. Interactivity was also something they said that they would remember, especially the kid orientation and the general playfulness. And finally, the National Mall setting, again, this was information people volunteered, was something that they felt would be especially memorable to me. Both the juxtaposition with existing works and also, again, just the novelty of something like Vanessa German's piece in front of the Lincoln Memorial, taking up space on the National Mall. Next slide, please. We did ask a specific question later about whether the National Mall location affected people's impressions of the artwork. 79% of people said yes, and we said why. So this just shows you an array of responses that talk about the power of that setting to people and how it influenced and supplemented the impact of the artwork. As I mentioned, people were really eager just to talk about the art pieces, but they really also got emotional when they started thinking about the National Mall, whether It was the fact, as I noted, that Marian Anderson was there in dialogue with President Lincoln, or even reflecting on the connection between the National Mall and their family history. In general, this felt like it was filling a void for people also, and empowering their own story, or a story that they felt should be elevated. My favorite quote is here at the bottom, that the National Mall location intensifies, amplifies, or megaphones the significance of an art piece. Next slide, please. Here are just a few more qualitative responses when we asked about particular settings of the artworks and their impressions and the impact that it made. Overall, again, even though respondents seem to love the National Mall already, this artwork in a way made them appreciate it even more at times. You can see some of these quotes. The artwork adds resonance and power to the National Mall. The artwork is a surprise that adds value to the National Mall. And finally, and I think really meaningfully, by having this artwork on the National Mall, it becomes part of our national story. And again, part of the national conversation that Teresa mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. We were interested in knowing what kind of behaviors the artworks might inspire that could extend the experience beyond just those few moments of looking at the artwork. So we asked how likely people were to do several activities on a scale of 1 to 5. These responses are showing the percentage of people who ranked the likelihood as a 4 or a 5 out of 5. Overall, I think the level of engagement was high. Really an overwhelming number of people, in keeping with the exhibition goals of inspiring reflection. 92% of people reported that they were likely to have a conversation about the artwork later on. 61% said they were likely to seek out more information online, suggesting that learning could continue beyond just, again, those several moments of standing in front of the artwork. 75% said they were likely to take a photo. About a third said they were likely to post about the work on social media. Again, reminder, the median age was 45 to 64, so the numbers are a little bit higher for the younger audiences. And although the numbers fluctuated a bit from site to site, it was really striking that the pattern, the ranking of these activities were the same in each site of the art exhibit. So pretty confident of these findings. Next slide, please. We had an open-ended question at the end about what stories people might like to see in a future exhibition of Beyond Granite. This was, again, an open-ended question, and the responses were individually recorded but grouped into themes. And we have illustrated the top 10 here. So these were all popular responses. About 60% of people did actually give a somewhat specific response. And then another 20% or so just said, yay, more diversity, or do more, or something like that. So endorsing the concept, but not necessarily being able to summon up a specific story at that time. Surprisingly, pretty few people actually said an individual. More people were interested in events or causes or issues. Less than 5% actually said a person. So again, these are the top answers. There are many other fascinating suggestions that people had. And this, of course, echoes and reinforces the important work done, for example, by Monument Lab and its monument audit. Also, the NCPC's efforts to document and inventory through the Memorial Trends and Practice Report and through, I believe, updating the current commemorative inventory. What some of the aspirations might be for future commemorative works. To me, the most interesting finding was how many people said the mall itself as a theme that they love to see explored in a future exhibition. The history of the mall, who built the monuments, what was the mall before this, the artists of the commemorative works, various events that have happened on the mall. So that was somewhat surprising to me because there wasn't necessarily an obvious prompt to get people to say that. But I think that that's a powerful reinforcement of the kind of passion and symbolic power of the mall on the general public. A fairly common answer too that I loved was something like, I want to see what I don't know already. People just said, teach me something. They wanted new stories and wanted to be challenged. Next slide, please. Briefly, I'll go through some conclusions based again on the audience engagement survey. Public response, really the response was really enthusiastic and I think demonstrated that this was an extraordinary opportunity to discuss the ways that the National Mall and its setting can depict our national identity. Based on feedback, summer was tough. This was reinforced by some of the other stakeholders I discussed this with. Summer has some advantages, but people had suggestions about more seating, more shade, possibly clustering works closer together. If you experienced the exhibit this summer, you may have experienced on a day when it was 96 degrees. Similarly, improving accessibility, people noted there were many people who loved taking a half a day and having an adventure walking up and down the mall. There were more people that mentioned some challenges in terms of accessibility for older people and for children, suggested perhaps clustering the works closer together, maybe making the circulator bus more accessible to the sites, etc. Engaging beyond DC and into the future. Like I mentioned, more than 60% of people said that they were interested in seeking out more information online afterward. And I think the media team and the partners did a great job of assembling information, but it seemed to indicate a desire for even more information that I think could be provided in an easy to access way through signage, possibly even to extend that to visitors beyond DC. As Teresa mentioned, there had been an initial goal of perhaps going and working with neighborhoods off the mall. My recommendation was there are a lot of ways that you could thematically connect the National Mall to DC neighborhoods when making those kinds of choices. There's a lot of power and impact that these agencies, which typically deal with the National Mall, could take advantage of when telling stories off the National Mall. Finally, an interesting theme of a future exhibition could be exploring the untold stories of the National Mall itself. As I noted, that was a really popular response to what people would like to see. And I think it could be worthwhile to explore either throughout the year in different kinds of programming or as a theme for an exhibit. Washington, DC was also a popular choice, and DC residents would often say something like, people come here, they don't know our culture, they don't know anything about us, they wanted to make their concerns and their cultural heritage also obvious to visitors from around the country. Next slide, please. So Teresa mentioned a lot of the ways that the pilot goals were met. This again, it was definitely the introduction by the artists of new topics, new kinds of media, art and subjects that hadn't been seen before on the National Mall. Like the public response, the media response was also very positive. There was positive feedback from officials from Park Service, Department of Interior, and not surprisingly, in a pilot exhibition, not all goals were fully met. And as Teresa mentioned, initially there was discussion about sites off of the mall, maybe even just in conjunction with an exhibition on the mall. I think that could be explored further. Also, certainly there's plenty of powerfully symbolic sites within Washington, D.C. that could be explored in a similar way. Deeper engagement with DC and regional communities. As Teresa has mentioned, this timeline was quite abbreviated. Partnerships take a while to develop, and I think seeing what has happened already on the National Mall, as Monument Lab calls that prototypes, I think can help foster a good discussion with DC and regional communities, particularly, for example, on the audience engagement survey, we had a lot of educators come and said, we would love to incorporate this into our classroom. You know, again, why is this in the summer? There are a lot of opportunities to work, I think, with educators in particular. Next slide, please. So overall recommendations for the future, again, this will be elaborated in the report that will come out next month. Building on the successful model of curation and artist-led storytelling. Again, the artists really introduced new types of stories with profound links to the context facilitated by the Park Service and the partners. I think, as Teresa said, this was proof of concept that this kind of public art exhibit can happen on the National Mall. Take time to build partnerships and nurture existing ones. Again, there was some time pressure. I think there are a lot of opportunities here. Continue to be strategic and brave about site selection. I think there was initially some concern about how would people respond to works on the National Mall. Would there be interference with existing commemorative works? The curators and the partners and the Park Service, I think, really carefully selected sites to complement but not encroach on existing memorials. And I think that was just overwhelmingly effective in helping amplify the message. Further work could be investing in local artists, organizations, and neighborhoods. Again, local artists and schools in particular are areas for further growth. Final two, interaction and interpretation is critical. People really responded favorably to a lot of people on the ground. I know NCPC and the Trust led tours. There were these welcome centers that people often cited as very meaningful. Even the audience engagement surveyors, people would often thank and cite as a positive part of their experience. Tiffany Chung had a public lecture, for example, on immigration policy right there on the mall that was powerful to people. So this is something I definitely think should be continued. Finally, explore dedicated temporary sites. I know that the NCPC staff has been talking about projects like the fourth plinth for a number of years that you're probably familiar with. This concept of an empty plinth with a rotating series of art installations is something that in my research, I didn't realize how many cities and even universities now and organizations are doing projects like this. Something along those lines, a dedicated temporary site, could address some of the issues raised in the audience engagement survey in terms of affording a sense of predictability. Audience would often say, like, when are you going to do this again? Ability to maybe provide some amenities in a predictable way, perhaps some greater ease in permitting. This might require some sort of dedicated funding source or endowment, but I think it's worth exploring as at least one aspect of how this project could continue. So that's a high-level overview. Thank you so much for listening. I'm available for questions later. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Teresa.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. Next steps. The Mellon Foundation certainly challenged the team from the beginning to think beyond the National Mall and to do more, and we're definitely going to do that. We are committed to a next iteration of the program, and we're currently defining what that will look like and a reasonable timeline for execution. We're really excited about exploring the themes identified in the survey, specifically the themes of connecting the National Mall to DC neighborhoods and exploring the rich history of local DC stories. There's just so much to work with there. Certainly providing more public engagement opportunities in the form of events, performance, workshops, and artist engagement. All of that is at the top of the list. And while I have you here today, I just want to, on behalf of the Trust for the National Mall, give our profound gratitude to Chairman Goodman and Marcella Costa and the team at NCPC for creating and supporting this incredible partnership. We're forever grateful and look forward to the next iteration with you. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think we'll get our screen ready here. Do any of the commissioners have questions for our team presenting today? Any questions? Very good. Well, if there are no questions at this time, and everyone has their cameras turned on, I think we'll start deliberations with Commissioner Wright, please. Commissioner Wright? Well, I will get back to Commissioner Wright and Commissioner.
Of other areas that could be interesting places to activate, especially the federal properties. And I do want to mention, just because there's a lot of discussion over artists. Folks might not know, but DC, we actually have one of the biggest funded public art programs in the US. We've spent $44 million in DC of local taxpayer dollars on supporting artists directly and organizations and all that. So we definitely have a wealth of artists that are resourced by the district. So I think that to the extent that can work with local artists here in the district to kind of capitalize on that. There's only 4 states that actually pay more into public art, like altogether than the district. So I think it's a vastly untapped resource that could have the potential to add a lot and add that DC layer to these displays.
Wonderful. Great point, Commissioner Cash. Commissioner Wright, I see you there now. I'm going to come back to you.
Yeah, you caught me. I was getting some tea. But I'm glad that I'm glad you waited because Commissioner Cash just made a really good point. Not to be outdone, GSA has the largest public art collection in the nation. And I would encourage you, and we have lots of good stuff in the district, obviously, because we're the home to so many headquarter agencies. And I would encourage you to see if there's I never thought about it before, but some kind of connection with the public art program at GSA might be a good thing. I mean, maybe it's simply a matter of coordinating, or with a handout of mapping other things for participants to see. But anyway, I good idea, Commissioner Cash.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I don't have any additional comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Giacchetti.
Hi, thank you very much. No comments here.
Thank you. Commissioner Steingasser.
No additional comments. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Steingasser. Commissioner McMahon.
Oh, make sure I'm off mute. No, appreciate the brief presentation, especially the thoughtful comments that the team was able to gather from the public as they visited it all. Certainly haven't been with the commissioners and NCPC staff on a typical August Friday walking around. This thought about the timing and where you put these things, I think bear merit for the next go around, and hopefully they will do this again. Especially tie this into the springtime when we have so many people coming from around the country, supporting high schools with their visits and all that. That'd be a great addition to the fabric of DC for those visitors. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you very much, Commissioner McMahon. Commissioner Stidham.
Thank you. I was with Commissioner McMahon on the extremely hot August day. So I echo encouragement to find other times of years, especially in light of the ability to engage with school groups. I also echo, it was more power. I recognize that it would be powerful. But I don't think that I recognized prior to it happening how powerful it would become and how many conversations that it started. And I think that's a huge power in itself, just the conversations that got started because of this exhibit. So that alone is a success. I had not heard the results of the survey. I knew the survey was taking place, so it's really interesting to me to hear the feedback that you were getting. And the fact that the mall is a full place, and we need to be thinking about how that commemoration takes place off the mall and in the neighborhoods and connecting to that. I would encourage you really to look into the neighborhoods for the second round of this exhibit. Engaging with those stories and how they relate to the city and bringing people out to those neighborhoods and showing the strength of those neighborhoods would be even more powerful and build on what you've already done. But great exhibit. And I do commend all of you for the really great work.
Thank you, Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Argo.
I can't get my video on, but it says the host has stopped my video stream. I don't know what I did to the host, stop my video stream, but there you go. Now I got it on there. There I am. I really appreciate all the work that's gone into it. And, those of us that are longtime residents of the District of Columbia and came from places like California, which where those were my roots, but I don't know why I have a special appreciation given the time I've been here and given the fact that I didn't start my life here or grow up here, but the appreciation I have for being a resident of the District of Columbia and wanting to share the experience of some of its special places like the mall with anyone who comes to visit. And I appreciate the attention that we're giving to the ways in which the mall can tell stories, that you and to have that be the place at which someone feels, hears, or experiences those stories is tremendously important. Appreciate the work and the continued work that we're going to do with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Argo. Vice Chair Hewlett, please.
Yeah, first of all, I want to commend the staff for the presentation. The exhibit itself was fabulous. The presentation was wonderful. It's eye-opening in terms of all the causes us to put on our thinking caps and think of all the other opportunities that we have that we can engage in, and other locations too, as I think others have said. So I think it's wonderful, and I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Hewlett. Commissioner Green.
Thank you. No, this is a really wonderful project. And I think one of my personal interests in it going forward is to be able to use this model to test out alternate sites around the district and other places where we'd like to encourage development of monuments and to really sort of, encourage people to think beyond the mall. I mean, I know this was specifically focused on additional representation on the mall, but as we all know, we're rapidly, there's a word that's faster than rapid, but I'm not sure what it is, running out of space on the mall. And this would be a wonderful way to both push for a broader way of looking and thinking about monuments, but also thinking more broadly about where they go and how to tell those stories in different places and how to use those new places and those new stories to draw more people in. I think we've got a lot of, I think that's the great mission for the next, heaven knows how many years, is to, to think beyond the mall now. And I think this model could be a really useful way to do that. So again, thank you. This was a really wonderful project, and I'm terribly interested in the next steps of it. This is a really wonderful thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Green. And I support so many of the comments that have been made by other commissioners.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Did I?
Yeah, you got me, but I wanted to get back, and I know you'll close things out as you always
That's
do in
okay.
a spectacular manner.
No,
But I wanted to
go for
raise,
it.
an area that I think should really get some immediate attention. I'd like the presence, as I've shared with the staff at NCPC this, some literature on the presence of Native Americans in Anacostia River East on the R side of our city, Anacostia River East side. And I think it would be great if we could get a relationship with the Native American Museum on the mall to maybe come over and replicate or symbolize or show demonstrated areas that they were lived in and operated in on our side in the land of R. So I think it'll be very interesting to see that green space converted into teepees and other things for a while, just to show Indian, Native American art, artifacts and things. So that just an idea, maybe it can take wings and get some energy. Obviously, with the many casinos, et cetera, that the Native Americans have the privilege to run, maybe they can send some resources over to help set up such a project in the land of R, Anacostia River East.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. Anyone else have additional comments they want to make? Anyone else? Well, hearing none, I want to, there are thank yous that are myriad here, but first of all, I just want to say how proud I am to be associated with the NCPC through this effort. This is really remarkable and replicable and groundbreaking for the mall, which I think is significant. I want to thank and recognize our executive director, Acosta, for securing the relationship with Mellon and securing the funding for this. But of course, it really fell on the trust for the National Mall and the National Park Service to implement that. So the real work there was done, and I want to recognize Teresa and her organization, and also the National Park Service, and the efforts that were, put forth to get this off the ground, so to speak, if you will. I want to thank Elizabeth Morton today, Dr. Morton, for your presentation. I've been looking forward to the evaluation. My experience is in the museum world. We have a Smithsonian affiliate in our community, the National Mississippi River Museum and Aquarium. And we tell the story both of the environmental history and condition of the Mississippi River and its tributaries, but also the cultural story of people on the river. And I remember when we were building this $100 million project and talking to different groups and gathering stories, I spoke to our local NAACP chapter, and one of my good friends there at the end of my presentation raised her hand and she said, "Terry, when I bring my children to this museum, will they see their faces there?" And I cannot say how much that moved me and how much I look forward to this exhibit, because I think we've only begun to scratch the surface of these incredible American stories. And we have so many underrepresented groups that haven't been a part of this story of our nation, but they have been here building the country alongside us. So I am just thrilled with the exhibit. I was there at the opening. Teresa, I met you and many of your colleagues, was able to attend the Hot August tour and another tour with my family. So impressed with the artists, so impressed with the curators and the support of those groups. And just amazed, because it is also, secondly, we talked to Lonnie Bunch about this at the Smithsonian. These are replicable. This is a replicable model. This isn't just confined to the mall. As someone suggested, it could be in Anacostia, it could be in other neighborhoods around the community, but also it's replicable in Dubuque, Iowa, and across the country. And it's just a wonderful model. So I just cannot say enough about this. And we're also grateful to the public and the different DC stakeholder groups who gave their time and energy and provided feedback so that we have something to help direct us in the future. And the evaluation's been very instrumental in what we're learning about this pilot project and how we can continue to build as we tell these underrepresented stories across the country and in Washington, D.C. So just so proud of this work, and congratulate the staff. I know Joanne has taken this, has been very personal, and Michael and others on the staff, and we're just so grateful for all of the work that you all have done to get this thing off the ground, and for the model that you're creating for the future stories to be told in Washington, D.C. in the creative way they were told on the mall that might help us to also preserve the mall and continue to make it this great gathering place and convening place for stories and people like and critters too. So thank you very much. Agenda item 9B is an information presentation on the Kennedy Center-Foggy Bottom study. Mr. Fleiss is going to give the presentation. Mr. Fleiss, we can see your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, commissioners and Chair Gordon. Thank you again. Today, I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the planning work that we've been undertaking over the last year in the Foggy Bottom area of Northwest Washington, D.C. So our focus today includes the areas around the Kennedy Center, extending from the Lincoln Memorial to the south, up to near K Street and the Rock Creek and Potomac Parkway here in the north. I think most of you are familiar with this area. The land is significantly occupied by a highway, the extension of I-66. That really does create a barrier between the Foggy Bottom neighborhood to the east and Kennedy Center to the west and the riverfront. And then also creates this barrier between the National Mall and the Lincoln Memorial to the south and the Kennedy Center itself. And just given the upcoming centennial, I'll note that NCPC actually had a role in both acquiring the land for the Kennedy Center, but also in planning for the freeway system. So it's interesting that we're coming back full circle to kind of undo the damage that was created during that freeway building era, particularly during the 1960s. So in this particular part of the district, NCPC has had a history of planning, going back to the legacy plan and then later the framework plan, which included some initial ideas about how to extend the commemorative landscape from the National Mall to the Kennedy Center, and then also from the President's Park down along E Street to the Kennedy Center. And the image here on the screen is just an excerpt from the framework plan that shows you some of those initial ideas about how to start to address this challenge, the connectivity issues created by that freeway infrastructure. NCPC has had some pretty consistent goals for this area, and I think many of these are also shared by the kind of significant stakeholders in the region. These include improving connectivity, which I've already mentioned, expanding open space, and also enhancing the setting of the Kennedy Center. So more recently, over the last year, we've been fortunate to continue some of this planning work. That started with AIADC, which kicked things off with some pro bono work, taking a look at some design opportunities with this area. And we followed that up with a consultant team led by Perkins Eastman, who created a new updated urban design study called Repairing and Reconnecting. We also partnered with ULI Washington last year and the District Office of Planning on a technical assistance panel, or TAP, which resulted in an action plan and some recommendations for next steps. So I'm going to first start by talking about the TAP and their recommendations. The panel included a number of highly recognized professionals from the development world, design and landscape, as well as academia. Here on the screen, you can see the panelists who participated. We also included a number of stakeholders and community representatives as well as part of this two-day effort. They participated to provide their input, and that also helped shape the recommendations. So over 2 days of work last fall, the panel considered the opportunities and the challenges of this area, and they came to a couple of significant conclusions. First, the scope of any infrastructure overhaul, they believed, is so large that it will require federal leadership. That was the first kind of initial finding. And second, to build a case for implementation to address this challenge, you must really draw upon the incredible assets of the area, which include obviously the presence of the Kennedy Center and proximity to the National Mall, as these are nationally and internationally recognized treasures. And then finally, the panel coalesced around the notion of expressing the identity of this place as a cultural district or cultural commons, which can be focused on the arts and culture. So the panel suggests that this idea of the new cultural commons could be an experience that doesn't currently exist on the National Mall, basically a tavern on the green that integrates active uses like restaurants in a way that could help complement the mall, but be distinct, expand the open space network and connect to the National Mall, but provide this new kind of setting, new kinds of uses that could be complementary to the existing arts and cultural identity created by the Kennedy Center. So in this way, the panel emphasized that this idea of the cultural commons could allow Kennedy Center to better connect to its surroundings, both physically in terms of that open space and better pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, but also programmatically creating these uses that could help be a better context for the Kennedy Center and the other surrounding context. So what does this all look like on the ground? So I mentioned we brought on a consultant team to help us develop an urban design concept that could show what this district could look like if we flip the focus from cars, which it currently is today, to people. And they proposed essentially decking over the existing highway to create a new usable open space network connecting Foggy Bottom, the neighborhood, to the Kennedy Center and the National Mall. And I'll mention that this wasn't undertaken as kind of one potential solution to this challenge. It's not intended to be the final and only solution, but really was an idea to kind of represent what the potential opportunities are if we address this issue. So here you can see on the screen one of the renderings that was created for this concept. This is a view that's looking towards the west and the Potomac River, so you can see the Kennedy Center in the distance. Here's the Lincoln Memorial and the end of the National Mall here in the foreground. Again, the big takeaway here is that by decking over the highway, it allows for the creation of this new interconnected open space. So you can see leading from the Lincoln Memorial to the Constitution, the end of Constitution Avenue, Kennedy Center, and then moving further to the north. We'll also note that this allows for E Street to be expressed as a grand boulevard connecting from President's Park to the Kennedy Center. So just to break it down, I'll kind of walk you through some of the main components of this scheme, starting in the north. Here, Virginia Avenue and the I-66 entrance are combined into one consolidated entrance. Juarez Circle is retained. And then a new kind of gateway or entrance is created at the intersection of Virginia Avenue and Rock Creek Parkway. As we move further south, centered on Kennedy Center, you can see the freeway is actually below grade here with the new park space located right on top. This would allow for pedestrian and bicycle connections at grade and also new connections from the Foggy Bottom neighborhood across to the Potomac River. As I mentioned before, this also allows for East Street to be more of a tree-lined boulevard, with the freeway component, again, diving underground and connecting beneath the park space to that road network. And then finally, just moving to the south, here's the new connection between Kennedy Center and the Lincoln Memorial. I-66 comes in, again, underneath the new park, and this allows this new kind of open space, a better terminus to Constitution Avenue. And again, the whole idea here is to create this kind of new and improved gateway, both to the National Mall, but the district as a whole. I will mention that we did also ask the consultant to think about environment and sustainability. These are things that are an undercurrent of everything, a consideration of everything that we do. So at a high level, they noted that there could be several important benefits to this scheme. Obviously, increasing the amount of green space, pervious cover, integrating new trees and plantings, which would create a more cooling and an inviting environment. But then also things like stormwater management could be incorporated, as well as renewable energy, particularly in those areas that are created, potentially create opportunities for new development. Those could allow for new sustainable designs, including solar panels. So, as part of this effort, we had a kind of design concept, a general vision, but the question remains how to get it done. One of the main recommendations of the TAP panel was that this effort really needs a champion, someone that can keep and help uphold the vision. And their recommendation was that a high-level advisory board could be one way to help bring together the stakeholders and to continue to advance the initiative. So here you can see on the screen just a preliminary list of the potential members that the TAP identified who could be part of such a board and help continue the conversation and also keep the vision moving forward. So as you can see, there's been a lot happening over the last year. We're excited about the work that's completed. In terms of next steps, we continue to meet with our stakeholders, including the Park Service, Kennedy Center and the District Office of Planning, and we are going to continue to reach out to other agencies and partners. In particular, we're focused and interested in finding those champions and potential conveners, and also working further to digest all the recommendations that came out of the TAP work. I will say that, just given the scale of the infrastructure changes that would be required here, this really is in the category of a long-term project. So there's certainly a lot more that would have to happen, but I would say there's really strong interest also in doing something which is really positive. So we will certainly keep the commission updated as we move forward. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you, Mr. Fliss. I believe I mispronounced your name when I introduced you. I do know your name, Matt. So thank you so much for that. The very exciting presentation. I find it personally very just fraught with possibilities, and I think it's a good start. Every plan has to start somewhere. So thank you so much for introducing that. Do any commissioners have questions about this proposal right now for Mr. Fliss? Any questions? Well, hearing none, I'll now open it up to the commission for discussion. Can everyone please turn on your cameras, and we will start with Commissioner Steingasser, please. Whoops, any comments you might have? Commissioner Steingasser?
You're on mute, Jennifer.
Sorry, I was choking there. That presentation was really exciting, and to see it all put together in that way was the potential and opportunity are really exciting, but I don't have any more direct comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gasser. Commissioner McMahon, please. Commissioner McMahon? Perhaps he stepped away. Commissioner Stidham?
I would love to see this happen. I don't know how, as it is not only would be a long-term project, but many hands would have to come together in agreement to make this happen. The Kennedy Center is always talked about as an extension of the mall, and the connections of the mall to the Kennedy Center and to the Rock Creek and Potomac Parkway. And this could actually make that connection real, and provide some really meaningful space for people where cars have really taken this space over. So count us in any conversation as it moves forward, if it moves forward, and hopefully it will, in discussions about this project. We would be very interested in seeing it come to fruition in some form.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Stidham. Commissioner Argo, please.
Is my mic on? Yeah. I see this as a study, but I also see it as a vision. And the visionary possibilities are, those of us that have been in the district for a really long time are so exciting. And it could be intimidating to think about the steps and the process and the length of time it might take to have this become a reality, but it's something I don't think we should let go of, and that we should fold into the work that we continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Argo. Vice Chair Hewlett, please.
Yeah, I thank you for the presentation. I think it is exciting. It's a wonderful opportunity. I hope we go forward. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Hewlett. Commissioner Green, please.
Thank you. No, this is really, really wonderful. But this is really important stuff. And I mean, I hope there's a role for NCPC in helping to find that champion that is so necessary to make sure that this happens. It's a terrific model to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Green. Commissioner Wright.
Well, you look at a plan like this and you think to yourself, at least I do, like, what were they thinking when they put in all these spaghetti roads? Well, all they were thinking about was traffic and speed. I have these arguments with my millennial children all the time who basically say us boomers have left them with a mess. And they're right, in lots of ways. But here's the example I always give, which is, well, okay, Tupperware was the latest, greatest thing in the 50s and early 60s, and nobody ever thought about anything other than the food it would save and the efficiency and the leftovers and the food waste that would go away. Nobody thought about how to get rid of the plastic. And it's kind of the same thing here. Nobody really thought about pedestrian connectivity or how they were making. I mean, we've seen whole cities be bifurcated by these high-speed, traffic arteries that were all the rage. But it's way past time to undo it. And so all the stuff that Mr. Fliss described is I think this is almost more important than Pennsylvania Avenue. But the other thing that I because it solves a lot of potential problems, right? I mean, I'm glad that Mr. Green brought up the idea of Beyond Granite also creating some cachet off the mall, so people won't feel like second-rate citizens if their memorial or their museum is somewhere else. This can do some of the same things by taking some pressure off the mall and creating a promenade and and expanding a little bit, as you know, the E Street corridor could someday be a rival to the mall, or certainly an extension that's not considered, you know, third string. So, and I think that I was briefing up the other day about the eco district plan, and one of the things that I said about it was that, you know, it sort of picked up steam with the best of intentions, and became almost too much to ever implement. But I pointed out I mean, there's still pieces and parts of it that can be implemented, again, piecemeal, which is how all this stuff has to be done. But then you get to I don't think the Pennsylvania Avenue Initiative would be what it is if it weren't for lessons learned during the eco district planning, which was governance is important. Somebody's got to be made in charge. This stuff never happens, especially in Washington, because we're always brawling over who's in charge. And everybody has a piece of it, but nobody has the responsibility for it. So as you move forward with all the physical planning, my ghost will be nagging you to remember about governance, and remember about how you're going to get this done. It's beautiful to have these wonderful renderings and get everybody all inspired, but you got to figure out how to implement and lead. And NCPC is uniquely positioned to do that. So I would urge you to keep collecting the lessons learned from every big plan, because this is going to be a big one. I mean, many billions of dollars to fix this mistake. This is Tupperware on steroids.
Can we quote you? Thank you very much.
Don't. I always get in trouble when I get quoted.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Dixon?
Yeah, I think it's very ambitious. I hope to see something like this happen, but there are a lot of players that have to be brought together. It's pretty obvious. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. Commissioner Cash?
I'm always a fan of seeing less roads out there. And it is possible. I mean, we were supposed to have an inner beltway, so a lot of the stuff was really over-designed back in the 60s. And I think that any efforts to put a Band-Aid on it, in this case by covering it up, or even seeing what can be taken out, which roads can be taken out, is always a good thing. So I appreciate the efforts here.
Thank you, Commissioner Cash. Commissioner Davis?
No comments from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Giacchetti?
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Giacchetti. Commissioner McMahon, are you back, or did he leave?
He has left the meeting.
Okay, very, very good. I just want to say, first of all, I think it's incredibly exciting, as everyone has reflected. I was last week, I was sharing with the staff that last week I was in San Francisco visiting our son, and we went to the Presidio, which Diane's very familiar with, you know, and they were able to reclaim that former Defense, Department site and create this beautiful park overlooking Golden Gate Bridge in the bay, and there's all kind of play space and restaurants, and just it's frankly what we're proposing, or what we're thinking about here in terms of conceptual planning, is not precedent. This has been done, and San Francisco is a great example, and also St. Louis. They had the same kind of tangle and between the arch and the historic courthouse, and they were able to bury 8 lanes of traffic and create a beautiful green space, open green space that enables people to walk from that national park site, the arch, up to the historic courthouse in St. Louis. And these things are being done, and I sure like the idea. I just want to say that the Kennedy Center is a jewel, and it sits sort of out like an orphan or a sore thumb at the end of that space. And the space seems to be calling us to do this. In my mind, I am learning more and more every day about the siloing of jurisdictions in DC, and I think it's one of the greatest barriers to to planning, frankly. But I understand it's also it's not insurmountable. So I hear everyone's comments on this and appreciate that, and that's true. But there are ways forward, I think. So I just appreciate the collaboration of the district and the federal partners in the planning process, as well as the Urban Land Institute in Washington that contributed to this, and the AIA DC, who brought their insight and expertise to this project. I just want to say, I think that it's a worthy effort to consider, and I hope that we can continue to try, and as Mina and others said, use our ability to convene, NCPC's ability to convene partners to begin more conversations about this, because I do think it addresses more than one of the challenges we see for the future. So with that said, I just want to thank everyone who was part of that presentation and the work that went into it, and certainly Mr. Fliss. But this concludes our open session agenda. Our next regular meeting will be Thursday, May 4th at 1 p.m. And the agenda promises to be longer than today's. So be prepared, but there is no other business unless someone has something they'd like to raise at this time. Hearing none, our session is now adjourned. Thank you very much. Everyone have a great weekend.